Good morning. Welcome to our class today. Today, our theme, continuing on the idea of moving along a journey. Today, we're going to talk about how we take steps along that journey. So, last week we talked about the first step and making a commitment. And today, sort of following along with that idea of going step by step. And in yoga, especially in teaching yoga, we talk a lot in my teacher training program about a concept called Krama. And Krama literally means to go step by step. So what that means is when we walk into a yoga class, we don't come in and just do a headstand right off the bat. We warm up to it, we get ready. We don't do a lot of headstands in my classes these days anyway. Um, but the idea that we take steps towards that goal, that eventual goal, and then we take steps to come back to a place of neutral before we head back into the world. This can apply to a yoga class. It can also apply to life, right? If we have a big goal that we want to achieve, sometimes it feels extremely overwhelming, right? Like the idea of, for some of you, maybe the idea of ever doing a headstand may be completely outside of your realm of possibility. And not that I'm advocating headstands actually, because really can be very risky for the neck, but just as an example, we might not have a really clear idea of how we're going to get from where we are to where we want to be at the end. And the idea is to take one step, any step, right? Even if you're kind of going in the wrong direction, there's a bit of momentum that comes when we decide I'm going to take that first step. And often the first step is the hardest step, right? Just getting yourself going and making that commitment to go on that journey. So today what we're going to do is we're going to build our sequences step by step. So some of the sequences we'll build. So we'll have one pose and then we'll add on and we'll keep adding on and doing all of those poses in a string to kind of build on that sequence. And then other sequences will kind of do a simpler version and then more challenging version and a more challenging version. And the usual instruction is to go at your own pace, but also when we go step by step, you always have the option to go back to the step before. So if the next step feels like too much for you, there's a path back to a step that hopefully will work for you. If you have trouble being on your knees, if that's an issue for you, then you might want to have a chair handy so that you can do one of the sequences from a standing position to a chair rather than a kneeling position to the ground. And otherwise, if you have blocks and a blanket and they're handy, that's great. Otherwise, you don't need anything. So I will see you over at the mat. You can start lying down. Lying down or sitting if you prefer to do your centering from a seated position, that's also completely fine. And as you come to your mat, take a moment to check in with how your body is feeling today. Notice what's present, what's noticeable to you today. If parts of your body feel a bit disconnected or even numb, or there isn't sensation in parts of your body, notice that as well. And know that it's normal to have more sensation in some areas, less sensation, or even no sensation in some areas of your body. And also, our minds tend to be pulled towards what's painful or uncomfortable. So certainly go ahead and notice that, but try not to give it all of your attention. So whatever we give attention to tends to grow and become more intense. So if you can, simply notice areas of your body that feel tight or perhaps painful or uncomfortable, and then shift your attention to somewhere maybe that feels good, that feels open, or maybe just neutral. So when we think about moving forward step by step and taking our time and savoring the journey rather than having a goal to get to the destination as quickly as possible, when we slow down and enjoy the journey a little bit more, we become more alive. We can also take steps in many different ways in yoga. So one way, as I mentioned, was to build on the postures, and another way is to build on the breath. And at the end of the class, I'll give you an example of how we might also build a chant step by step. But for now, let's shift the attention to the breath. And in order to invite a little bit more energy into the body, we're going to have a bit of focus on the inhalation. So if you simply notice your breath as it is right now, maybe be aware of how long it takes you to inhale, 1 or 2 or 3 seconds probably. Don't worry about the exhale, it will flow on its own. But if it feels comfortable to you and the breath is a focus that you enjoy, you can add a little bit of time to each inhale. So maybe if you're starting at 2 or 3 seconds with your inhale, you might extend the inhale to 3 or 4 seconds, and then maybe 4 or 5 seconds. So just creating a little more length, slowing the inhale down, bringing a little bit more focus and attention to the inhale, and allowing the exhale to simply flow naturally. Please don't strain your breath. So after a few breaths, you might get to the point where it feels like that's full enough for you. You can take a few breaths at that rate, so comfortably full, not straining or stressing. Feeling the fullness of the breath without bringing any tension into your body. And if it feels like there's tension coming in, go back a step, go back to where it felt a little easier, more natural. And then you can allow the breath to return to normal. So focusing on the inhale has a tendency to put a little bit of a gas pedal on the nervous system and bring a little more energy into the body. So you may be aware of that now, or it may be more subtle for you today. So from your lying down position, we'll start to bring in some movement. And you're welcome to bend your knees at this point and allow your lower back to be a little more settled on the ground. And we'll start with some movement for the arms. And we'll start by taking the arms straight up toward the ceiling, pausing there to let the shoulders relax down toward the ground. And then we'll take the arms further overhead. And here you might choose to bend the elbows or take the arms more to the sides rather than straight overhead, or whatever position is best for your shoulders today. And then we'll bring the arms all the way back down to the sides. So we're rising up with the arms in 2 stages. So we come to the center, pause there, let the shoulders relax, and then reach overhead or out to the sides for a little more stretch, and then back down, arms beside your body. If you want to coordinate your breathing with this movement, you'll inhale as you take the first step, exhale as you pause here and let the shoulders relax. Inhale, take the arms overhead or out to the sides, and then exhale and come all the way down. Let's try one more like that. So if you're coordinating breath, inhale, pause and relax the shoulders as you exhale. Inhale, reach overhead or out to the sides, and then exhale back to your starting position. And then we'll do something similar, lifting up into bridge. We'll lift in 2 steps, come down in 1. So here we can leave the arms out of the equation. You can let them come to any relaxed position, either right beside you or a little bit away from the body if you prefer. Line up your heels more or less under your knees unless that amount of flexion is too much for your knees, and then you can move the feet a little bit further away. So same pattern here with the movement and the breath. We'll inhale and lift a few inches, and then as you exhale, stay here, but relax the hips, relax the belly. And then as you inhale again, lift the hips a little higher, and gently squeeze the buttocks here, and then exhale, come all the way down, relaxing the back and the hips as you come down. So your first step is to come part way up, and then relax there. Second step is to lift higher, and then coming down in one smooth motion. So again, if you want to coordinate your breathing, inhale to the first step, exhale, relax. Inhale, lift a little higher. Exhale, come all the way down. We'll do one more. Inhale, if you're coordinating breath, pause there, exhale. Inhale, lift a little higher. And then exhale and come all the way down. So the next movement is to put those two pieces together. So starting with the arms down, and if you want to just stay with one or the other, that's completely fine. Or you can bring the two pieces together now. So together, with the first inhale, lift the hips a few inches, arms come to point at the ceiling. Exhale, shoulders and hips relax here. Inhale, lift the rest of the way with the arms and the hips. And then exhale and come all the way down. Again, coming part way with the arms and the hips. Exhale here. Lift the rest of the way. And then come all the way down. Try a couple more, moving at your own pace. Again, coordinating with the breath is optional. So if you find it helpful to coordinate the breath, you can go for that. And if you find that it just creates any kind of tension or confusion for you, just do the movement and breathe normally. So finish the one that you're on, come down to the mat and pause there for a moment. Let the shoulders and the hips, the lower back relax for a moment as you check in. If you feel tension in your lower back at this point, it would be a nice option maybe to bring the knees to the chest, move forward and back a few times if you like to release the low back. We're going to keep working with bridge a little bit longer here. So this might be a nice time to pause and check in and see if what we've done already is enough for you, or if you're ready to take the next step and add on to this sequence that we've been working with. So if you've brought your knees to your chest, you can bring the feet back to the floor. And we're going to use this pattern that we've just created as the basis to move forward and take more steps. And we'll take one step at a time as we build this sequence. So starting with the arms at your sides. And if you want to just do the arms or just do the hips for this part, you could do that as well. So we're going to press into the feet, lift up, breathing in. Exhale, soften here. And then lift the rest of the way with the next inhale. As you exhale, now leave your arms overhead and slowly release your hips to the ground. Take a breath in here. And then as you exhale, lower the arms down to your sides. And then the next next sequence will add another step. You can always go back to the step before if you find that that was better for you. So inhale, lift part way. Exhale, relax the hips and shoulders. Inhale, lift the rest of the way. Leave the arms overhead. Exhale and slowly lower the hips to the ground. Take a breath in here. As you exhale, engage your core. Bring the lower back toward the ground. Bring the knees toward the chest, hands to the knees, and gently squeeze in. Inhale, feet to the floor, arms reach overhead. Keep your core engaged. And then exhale, arms back down to your sides. Take a moment here, check in if that was enough for you, or perhaps even more than enough. You might go back to a previous step, or you can keep moving forward with me. So inhale, come halfway up. Exhale, soften and relax the shoulders and hips. Inhale, lift the rest of the way. Leave the arms overhead. Exhale, and lower down through the hips. Inhale here. Engage your core, bring your knees to your chest as you exhale, hands to the knees, a little squeeze in. And then inhale, the arms can go to the sides or overhead as you lift the legs toward the ceiling. And then exhale, back to where you started. So we'll repeat that maybe 2 more times. So inhale, come up part way. Exhale, soften here. Inhale the rest of the way. Arms stay overhead. Slowly lower down. You can exhale as you lower the hips. And then inhale here. Reach out with your fingertips. Exhale, engage your core. Knees to chest. Hands to knees, squeezing in. Inhale, reaching the arms either overhead or out to the sides as the legs reach up. And then back to where you started with your exhale. Keep your core engaged as you bring the feet to the floor to protect your lower back. And take a breath here. And then we'll do that one more time. So inhale part way. Exhale, soften here. Inhale, reach a little higher if that's available to you. And then keep the arms overhead. Slowly lower down. Take a breath in. Engage your core. Exhale, knees to chest. Gently squeeze in at the end of your exhale. Inhale, legs up, arms out. Exhale back to where we started. Okay, and then let's pause here for a few breaths. Tune into how your body feels now as we've taken a few steps along the journey of our yoga practice today. We're going to next build on a twist where we do one twist and then maybe a little more twist, and you can, again, stop anywhere along the path that feels right for you. So for the first twist, we'll bring the knees and the feet together, and it's a very gentle twist where we only move one leg at a time. So often when we're twisting from this position, both legs are moving side to side. But for this one, taking one leg toward the ground, and you'll likely feel your weight shift towards that side, and then you'll bring that knee back to center and take the other leg toward the ground and back to center. So it's some movement for the hips, a little opening for the inner thighs, and a little bit of twist for the low back. If you want to coordinate your breathing, actually don't even worry about your breath right now. Just tune into the movement, and as we get to the next step, we'll bring in the breath. When I say don't worry about the breath, I don't mean stop breathing. So keep breathing and eventually come back to the center here, and we'll take the feet a little bit apart. So for the next twist, as we bring the feet apart here, we end up with more movement in the hip joints and a little bit less in the lower back. So you can take the knees as far to the side as feels right for you. So a first step might be just halfway down to one side and then to the center, and then maybe a little further if that felt good to you. And you can keep adding a little bit of movement to the side as it feels good for you. Tune into what you feel in your lower back and your hips. And here, if you want to coordinate breathing, exhale to the side, inhale to center. And then we'll come back to the center and we'll switch it up. So for the next one, we'll bring the knees back together, feet back together. And now as we twist, and if we keep the knees together and even let the feet stack on top of one another, we're going to get much more twist through the back, less feeling of twist in the joints of the hips. Breath is the same here. Exhale to the side, inhale to the center. You can always just move and breathe freely if coordinating the breath doesn't feel right for you for any reason. And then come back to the center. We don't want to overdo too many twists here. And if you feel like you want to, before we do our next twist, which will be a little bit more twist, you can bring the knees into the chest again and make sure that you feel even and comfortable through the spine and the hips. If you find twisting is challenging for you and more twisting isn't better for you, then you might skip the next movement or just do the arms of the next movement. So you're twisting into the upper back mostly. So for the next one, feet to the floor. And you can decide feet together or feet apart, depending what felt better for you in the last series. And then take your arms up toward the ceiling and bend your elbows to take your hands to each opposite elbow and hold on to the elbows here. Now as the knees go one way, you might take your head and your elbows in the opposite direction and then come back to center and go the other way. So again, if you feel like your lower back has experienced enough twisting in this sequence, you can do just the step of the arms, or you can go back to one of the previous steps that we already did, or anything else that would suit you. Right, and then gradually make your way back to center. We'll release the arms and bring the knees up in toward the chest again. And if you like the forward and back movement of Apanasana, you can do that movement again. If you prefer Urdhva Prasrita Padasana, or short form UPP, stretching the arms either overhead or out to the sides, legs toward the ceiling, and then knees to chest, hands to knees. So whichever movement feels best to you to bring a little more balance back to the hips and spine after our twisting. Feel free. You might choose to bring the knees to the chest and maybe rock a little to massage the muscles that support the spine. Or perhaps you want to give a little massage around the sacrum at the lower part of the spine. You could take the hands to the knees and circle around if that feels good for you. Great. And then when you feel ready, let's bring the feet back to the floor. And before we transition, we're going to be moving to all fours and doing some sequences there. So let's just take the arms toward the ceiling and do a few circles with the wrists first to prepare the wrists for being on all fours. So you can make your circles with the hands open, or you might make fists with the hands, circling each way, one way and then the other. And then interlace your fingers, turn the palms toward the ceiling, press the palms up. Feel a little stretch in the forearms perhaps and the hands. And then release, give the arms and the wrists a little bit of a shake, and then let the arms come down to the ground and pause there for a minute before we transition to a new position. And feel the effect of the movement that we just did in the arms and the wrists. You might feel some warmth or some tingling. It's also possible that there's no sensation or very little sensation. So it's really checking in, not any particular outcome that we're looking for. So whenever you're ready, you can roll onto your side and use your hand to support you as you come up to a seated position. And then from there, you can come right around to all fours. And we're going to spend some time on all fours and kneeling today. So first of all, if you're okay on your knees and using a blanket would be helpful to add a little more padding, then you can do that. If you have a nice thick mat and your knees aren't too sensitive, you might not need the blanket. And then I will also show you an option using the chair. So for those of you who are on all fours and you want to get started with a little bit of movement here, you can start with either cat-cow, where you arch on the inhale and round on the exhale. Or you could go from the arched position, the cow position, to child's pose. And something that's quite common here is as you come up to all four, there's a tendency to lock the elbows and kind of scrunch the shoulders and sink down. And so I would encourage you today to pay attention as you come to especially the inhale position. Think about bending your elbows a little, drawing your shoulders back, and letting the chest reach through between your arms. And then pressing into the hands as you round or come to child's pose. So you can do a few more like that if you're on hands and knees. Maybe rest in child's pose if you like. And then for those of you who have a difficult time being on your knees, instead of doing this sequence from the knees, you can do it to a chair. So a little bend in the knees and arms, inhaling, and then you can press into the hands and feet. Exhale to round. So either way. And then for those of you who are on all fours, we're going to either shift back to a low kneeling position if your knees and ankles will tolerate this. For many people, usually about half the people in my classes these days find that that's not comfortable for the knees or the ankles or one or the other. And so your starting position for this next sequence may be up on the knees. And again, if that's not okay with your knees, then your starting position will be near your chair, standing maybe a foot or so back from your chair. So from here, I'll demonstrate the kneeling version first, and we're going to add on. So once you kind of get a hang for where we're going, you can do it either on the chair or kneeling. So starting from your kneeling position, we're going to come up with a breath in, and then hands to the floor or the chair in child's pose. Coming up again, high kneeling, and then come back to wherever you started, standing, high kneeling, or low kneeling. So this is a sequence where we're going to add on, just as we did with the bridge. So each time we do the movement, there's going to be another piece added on. So from here, coming up, high kneeling, exhale, come to child's pose or hands to the chair. Inhale, cow pose. Exhale, child's pose. Inhale, high kneeling. Exhale back to where you started, standing, high kneeling, or low kneeling. Coming up with a breath in. Exhale, child's pose. Inhale, come to all fours. You have an option here. If downward dog is accessible for you, you can come to downward dog. If not, if you're wrists don't want to go there or any other part of your body, go back to child's pose. If you've come to downward dog, you can take a few breaths there while I demonstrate how this might work with the chair. So from the chair, to come to a version of downward dog, you can step your feet back, bend your knees, and stretch out your arms. So from downward dog, if you're on your knees, come back to all fours. On a chair, step forward, inhale. Exhale, rounding or child's pose. And bend the knees a little. Inhale, high kneeling or standing. And exhale back to wherever you started. Great. So we're going to add on, this time we're going to add warrior when we get to downward dog. So if you find it challenging to step forward from downward dog, blocks might be helpful for you, but there's also, ways that we can get there without the blocks, releasing one hand, stepping forward, then lifting the back knee. And I think most of you have a way to get that foot forward, so you can do that however it works for you. So from our kneeling position, we'll come up with a breath in. Exhale to child's pose. Inhale, all fours. Exhaling, come to downward dog. Keep the knees bent a little bit, especially if you're just warming up here. And then from here, we'll step the left foot forward between the hands. So however you want or need to get there, take your time. And then your back foot is going to turn out to the side, maybe step a little forward, and I'm just going to tuck mine under my blanket there to get a shorter stance and give myself more stability and ease in this pose. If you're using blocks, you might bring them under your hands here. And once you feel well planted, the feet feel like they're in a good position and you feel balanced, we'll do a few movements dynamically up and down in warrior. So as you come up, the front knee bends and we come into a back bend. Shoulders down, and try to think about belly moving back a little bit so that we're not overarching the lower back, sticking the rib cage out, finding a little lift in the heart. And then as you exhale, you can, and I hope you weren't holding your breath that whole time, you can bring your hands to the ground or your leg or the blocks, let your head come down. And that front leg can move straighter here. So depending on how tight you feel, it may be a little more bent, it may be a little more straight as you come forward. So let's do a few more like that. Coming up, bending the knee, keeping a little bit of engagement and lifting through the heart. And then exhale, coming forward, moving the front leg a little straighter if that's available. A couple more at your own pace. And then from there, as you come forward, you can stay for a few breaths. If you're feeling a lot of tightness in that front leg, in the back of the leg here, bending and straightening the leg could bring a little ease. And then we'll switch sides. So the easier way to switch would be to step forward and then back the other foot. And if you want a more challenging way, back to downward dog. And then from there, taking the foot forward. So either way, the right foot ends up forward, left foot back, and you can turn your toes to the left. Find some stability. And when you're ready, we'll lift up in warrior one on this side. Shoulders down, a little engaged through the core, nice strong warrior. And then exhale to your forward position. And repeat that a few more times. Again, when you come forward this time, you're welcome to stay. And again, you're also welcome to bend and straighten that leg, especially if you feel really tight and bit stuck this morning, moving is better than just forcing your leg into a straight position and staying there. When you're ready, we're going to step back to downward dog. From downward dog, lower the knees. Take a breath in the cow position. Remember, bend the elbows, chest forward. Exhale, child's pose. Inhale, high kneeling. And exhale, coming back to sit on your heels, or stand or high kneeling, whatever is best for you. So we're going to add one more piece onto this from Warrior 1. When we come upright, we'll come to Warrior 2 and add a little bit of a side bend. So all of this can be done to the chair, just exactly as I showed you before. You would just step forward for Warrior and then turn for your Warrior 2. So from here, coming up, breathing in. Exhale, forward bend, child's pose. Inhale, all fours. Exhale, downward dog. We'll take the left foot forward. Turn the right foot out. Again, you can step the right foot a bit forward if you are looking for a bit more stability and ease today. Inhale, lifting to Warrior 1. And we're going to turn to the right. So main thing here, we want to keep your left knee pointing straight forward as you turn to the right. You can open up your right foot so that you're on an angle that's comfortable for the hip and the ankle and the knee. And then look down at your left knee. It should be pointing in the same direction as your toes. And then arms coming out to the sides, Warrior 2. So we'll do a dynamic movement from Warrior 2 to triangle pose or Trikonasana. So you can move the front leg straight or try not to clunk and lock that knee. So keep your thigh engaged and even keep a little bit of bend as you reach over and down. You can bring the hand onto the shin, but don't push back on the shin to lock the knee. And then come back, bend the knee, come to Warrior 2. So we'll reach down. You can exhale as you go down. Inhale as you come to Warrior 2. If you want to work with your gaze, look out over your left hand as you come to Warrior 2. As you come to Trikonasana, turn to look up at your upper hand as long as that's okay for your neck. Otherwise, look forward or down. Once more here. And then back to Warrior 2. We'll lift the back heel. Swing the back arm overhead as we pivot on the back foot. Bring the arms down either to your blocks or to your mat. And again, we're going to switch sides. So easier version, step forward. More challenging version, back to downward dog. So however you want to find your way there, right foot will be forward, left foot will be back. Lifting up into Warrior 1. Again, turning to Warrior 2, and I'm opening my left foot a little bit for a more comfortable angle on that back leg, but I'm making sure that my right knee is pointing in the same direction as my right toes. Arms out to the sides, Warrior 2. Take a breath in. And then as you exhale, reaching down for Trikonasana. Remember not to lock or hyperextend that knee. Back up to Warrior 2. Inhaling, try to keep the knee more or less over the ankle in Warrior 2. A nice strong leg in Trikonasana. Again, you could look up as you come to Trikonasana, looking over your right hand in Warrior. Okay, let's come back to Warrior 2. Lift the back heel, pivot on that foot as you swing the arm around. Bring the hands down, blocks or the ground. Step back, downward dog. From downward dog, breathing in, all fours. Exhale, child's pose. Inhale, high kneeling. And exhale back to wherever you started. So if we think of this sequence as kind of like a mountain, we've just climbed the mountain and we've reached the apex. And now we're going to reverse and take poses away each time to come back to the most simple version that we started with. So taking a breath in, coming up. Exhale, child's pose. Inhale, all fours. Exhale, downward dog. At the end of your exhale, left foot steps forward, right foot turns out. Inhale, warrior one. Exhale, we'll switch sides, so just one warrior now. Stepping back or forward to switch sides as you prefer. End up with the right foot forward. Coming up with a breath in. Forward with your exhale. Stepping back to downward dog. And then inhale all fours. Exhale child's pose. Inhale high kneeling. And exhale back to your starting position. So this time we'll take out warrior and move through the sequence. Again, inhale up. Exhale child's pose. Inhale all fours. Exhale downward dog. You can always go to child's pose if downward dog feels like too much at this point. Come back to all fours, breathing in. Exhale child's pose. Inhale high kneeling. Exhale back to your starting position. Inhale, lift. Exhale, child's pose. Inhale, all fours. Exhale, child's pose. High kneeling, lifting as you breathe in. And exhale back to where you started. We're almost there. Inhale, lift. Exhale, child's pose. Inhale, lift. Exhale back to where you started. Okay, so that's how we can build sequences and add on, and the option to stop at any step is always there. So let's tuck the toes under, as long as this is comfortable for your feet. Give your feet a little stretch here as you send your weight back. We're going to come to a standing forward bend. So if your knees and ankles will allow you to come to a squat first, you can do that and then lift the hips to come to a standing forward bend. Or if you prefer, you could step forward and come to a standing forward bend. Keep your knees bent, arms heavy. And then bring your hands up to your knees. Find a little arch in the back and take a couple of breaths here. Try not to lock your arms and scrunch your shoulders, so keep the elbows bent, shoulders down. And then from here, we'll lift all the way up. And exhale to release. So here you might want to move that blanket out of your way. Come to Tadasana, mountain pose. And we'll build a little bit of a sequence that's based on a more traditional sun salutation. So what we just did was a kneeling kind of sun salutation. And we'll move on to more traditional. We won't do the whole sun salutation today, but start to build it a little bit. So you want to be somewhat near the front of your mat because we're going to be stepping back this time rather than stepping forward. So start with a feeling of heels sinking down and lots of length in your spine in Tadasana, mountain pose. And we'll start with the first step of simply lifting the arms and finding a little lift in the heart, and then exhaling, arms down. You can raise your arms to the front, to the sides, whatever you like. You can even bring the arms down with the palms together, which I know is a nice variation for some. So let's do one more. Lifting with a breath in, exhale, coming down. We'll add a forward bend now. So coming up with the breath in, bend your knees, long spine, come forward any amount, could be hands to thighs or shins or right down to the ground. And then inhale and come all the way up. Exhaling, lower your arms to the sides. So again, breathing with the movement, coordinating the movement is optional, but do keep breathing even if you're not coordinating. Coming up with a breath in. Exhale, forward. This time bring your hands to your shins or knees. Come about halfway up, breathe in, shoulders back, elbows soft. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, come all the way up. And exhale, release. We'll add on, coming up with the breath in. Exhale, forward. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, fold forward. And let's step back with the right foot to come to lunge. And then step forward. Step back with the left foot, lunge, and come forward. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, fold. Inhale, come all the way up. And exhale, arms down. So we'll come back to that sequence with lunge. And when we get to lunge this time, you'll have a couple of options to give yourself a bit more challenge or less challenge if you like. Inhale, lift. Exhale, forward. Inhale, lengthen with hands to shins or knees. Exhale, fold forward. Step back with your right foot. And here you can stay with the hands on the ground or make it a little easier by bringing blocks under your hands. Think about drawing your right hip a little forward, left hip back, as if you're trying to squeeze the upper thighs towards each other so that you feel hopefully well engaged through the lower body. You're not going to your absolute maximum here. You know, I could go a lot deeper in this lunge, but I would really feel pressure on my joints. You want to feel your muscles working. And if you feel strong and confident here, you could bring your hands up onto your front knee. And if you're still feeling confident and well balanced here, you could take the arms and lift them overhead. As you come upright, if you feel that there's a lot of arch or jamming feeling in your lower back, bend your back knee. And you might see how my lower back comes more neutral as I bend the back knee, and it's more arched as I straighten the leg. And either way, you want to keep a bit of engagement in the core. If you're still up in the pose, you can bring the hands down to the ground or your blocks if you've got them. And again, to switch sides, you have the option of going to downward dog, a little more challenging option, or stepping forward, a little easier option. So however it works for you, you're going to end up with your right foot forward, left foot back, toes pointing forward if that's available to you in lunge. So the back heel is up. It's a little more challenging to balance. So if you want to take the foot to the side in more of a warrior stance, that would be an option as well here. So either stay where you are or hands to the front knee. And again, you want to think about the hips, back hip moving forward, forward hip moving back, and like you're squeezing the upper thighs towards each other and staying well engaged through the hips. From there, if you want to go to the next step, You could raise the arms overhead. And again, tune into your lower back. If it feels like there's a lot of arch there, try bending your back knee a little and coming to a more neutral position. You don't want to tuck your pelvis, but find a neutral position. If it's comfortable to have the back leg straight, that's fine too. Right. From here, we'll bring the hands down to the floor of the blocks and step forward. And then hands to shins or knees, breathing in. Exhale to fold forward. Release the neck. Maybe take one more breath here. And then we'll come all the way up, breathing in. And exhale to release. So as we come back to Tadasana, mountain pose, bring your feet under your hips, shoulders over the hips. You can roll the shoulders back and down and find a nice aligned position that feels good to you. And then we'll do a little bit of releasing for the shoulders and the hips before we come back down to the mat. So you can take the feet a little bit apart and bend the knees a bit and maybe bring the hands to the hips. And you can do a little movement here, taking the hips in a bit of a circle. You're not going to the full range of motion, but just making a nice, easy circle here. Circle the other way. And then when you come back to the center, you can release the arms down to your sides. And we can do a few rotations for the shoulders as well. And if you take one shoulder at a time, lift it and roll it back and let your body move with that motion, and then the other shoulder. And let your hips swing a little, your head could even move a bit. If you feel that there's tension in the joints of your lower body, you might let even the feet move a little bit so you're not putting leverage and torsion onto your joints. So, if you want to move this into bigger movements for the arms and maybe taking the arms into rotation forward and then back, or whatever feels good to your body. And just moving the arms and the legs, a little shake, just letting go of any tension that you may have inadvertently brought into your body through the effort of the practice today. And then come back to Tadasana, bringing the feet under the hips, shoulders over the hips, head over the shoulders, feeling of sinking down into the heels, and again, letting go of the effort of the practice. Check in with your body, your breath. And then whenever you feel ready to come back to the ground, you can move down onto your back. And when you get there, you might bring the knees into the chest if that would feel good to you. Maybe some forward and back movement. Maybe some circles. Squeezing the knees in perhaps. So take a minute or so, and whatever movement from this sort of position would feel good for you, you can follow that. Maybe you'd like to stretch the legs up toward the ceiling. Give a little stretch to the back of the legs and then into the chest. Maybe it would feel good for you to stretch your arms and legs out on the ground and take a nice big stretch from fingers to toes. And if there's any other movement that wants to happen to allow your body to be more settled and relaxed for our next pose, which is Shavasana, you can just take a little more time if you need it, and then gradually start to let your body settle. And when you settle, you can either have the feet on the floor with the knees bent, or you can have legs straight. Your arms could rest on the floor or on your body. If you have a blanket or bolster and want to tuck it under your knees for a little more support, you could do that, or anything else that works for you. So you find that comfortable position for Shavasana. Let your body settle there. So just like the postures, the breath, and in a moment you'll see this with the chant. We incrementally and step by step invite the body to relax as we come into Shavasana. So if you start by bringing your awareness right down to your feet, and if possible, have a sense of your feet being relaxed and heavy, letting go of the effort of the standing postures that we did today. And feel your feet soften perhaps a little bit more. As you exhale, feel the feet release as the ankles and the calves also let go. Could you soften your knees a little bit more and feel the thighs release and drop? And then as you exhale, feel the weight of your pelvis dropping into the earth. Soften the muscles around your hips, the buttocks, the lower belly. See if you can bring a little more ease into your lower back. And let the weight of your rib cage drop down and settle. Feel the breath moving with as much ease as possible, without any effort, to let the breath come and go as is available for you today. If there's any challenge with your breath, simply notice that and maybe draw your attention back to your body and a feeling of dropping down through the shoulders, softening the arms right to the wrists and hands. Exhale, soften your throat and neck. You feel the weight of your head sinking down into the mat, letting go of tension in the jaw and all the muscles of the face. Exhale and soften anywhere where you may still be holding tension, and this might take several breaths to let go. And you may find there are even areas of your body that simply don't want to let go, and there's no need to force relaxation, but invite it. I'll share with you a very short chant, 2 words, ha and vu. This chant is on my yoga CD if you happen to have that. And this chant can build, so it starts with one sound and it builds, and then it goes back to one sound. And together the 2 sounds mean oh, wonderful, or isn't it wonderful? Havu, havu, havu. Havu, havu, ha. Havu, 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 ha. Havu. So you can also now gradually add to your inhalation again, taking a little more breath in with your next inhale, and then maybe a little more and a little more over a few subsequent breaths until you feel comfortably full again, and then take a few breaths there. And even coming out of Shavasana, we come out step by step, starting at the periphery of the body with the fingers and toes moving, and then gradually moving the joints closer to the core. So wrists and ankles, maybe bending the elbows or moving the shoulders, knees, hips. Gradually, maybe a little movement for the spine or bringing the knees to the chest or whatever would feel good for you. And if you want to stay a little longer in Shavasana, you can ignore all of these suggestions to move and engage when you're ready. And if you're ready to move on with your day, you can roll onto your side. and come back slowly to a seated position. And as you go about your day, maybe thinking about the steps in any project or towards any goal or any journey, and knowing that sometimes the first step is the hardest step, and we often don't take that step because we're not quite sure. Is it the right step? Am I going in the right direction? But it's often better to simply take a step, even if you're not sure. And that one step builds momentum for the next step, and the way often becomes more clear as we move down the path. So whatever your day brings, whatever your journey brings, letting yourself take each step as it comes and enjoying the journey and letting the outcome be whatever it will be. Palms together. Namaste.